Hello and welcome into the CHGO White Sox Podcast. Joining you live from our respective houses as the political convention is still going out in the West Loop of Chicago. My name is Herb Lawrence. I am the CHGO community leader on CHGO White Sox show. To my far left, over there in the blue hat, is the CHGO White Sox beat writer. His name is Vinnie Duber. You can follow him on the Twitter sphere at Vinnie Duber. And the guy in the middle sitting in for the vacationing Sean Anderson.
It's Jared Wyllys. I'll end the suspense right there. Herb seems to be having some internet issues at the moment.
Oh my goodness. Am I better
People
now?
are like, who is it? Who is it? Yeah.
I thought it was just a long pause, Herb. I thought it was just a long pause.
I mean, sometimes I do that. I'm sorry about this internet stuff. I mean, today is a celebration, and we'll get to what we're actually going to be covering today. Of course, we're going to be talking about last night's game, but today is a celebration as we have our first show on Roku. Oh my goodness, like on the Roku channel. You're catching us live on Roku. And if you guys have been checking us on your favorite podcast platforms and or YouTube, continue to do that. But we have expanded. This is an additive to be on Roku. Like my mom is a 66-year-old woman. She doesn't check me out on YouTube. She has Roku at the house. She can just hit the search button, type in CHGO, and see her baby boy on TV. I mean, guys, what does it feel like to be on Roku for the first day? I mean, I'm just elated to be here.
Yeah, I mean, it's great for us. Obviously, now I'm thinking eventually we're going to get to that point where, you know, when you go to like a bar or you go to go to get your hair cut, right, and they just have ESPN on all day. They don't care what's on it. It's just always on, right? I think that's what we're going to become here. Is you're going to walk into any establishment in Chicago and we're just going to be rolling in the background. You're just going to be seeing all of our lovely faces 24 hours a day.
And I love this. Sorry about that, Jared.
I love this vision you've painted. Yeah, every bar in Chicago, everywhere people go, you know, all the guys at Top Golf, you know, who knows, but let's get some CHGO on everybody's screens. I like it because I'm with Herb. There's a lot of people that, you know, maybe would want to watch, but don't quite know how to get the YouTube going on their TV or something like that, or aren't going to do that, but they can fire up Roku and watch us. It's pretty cool. Yeah. Get all of our shows in front of some more eyes. There's lots of good stuff for every Chicago sports team.
Hi, Herb's mom.
Hello. Yeah. I don't know if she's watching today. I've told her though. I was like, come on and watch this show. Our content is not available on the Roku channel. It's CHGO content 24/7. It's free. You just need to create an account on the RokuChannel.com. We have hours of live content as well as daily replays. It's not an app on Roku. It's just physically on their channel of content. We are some of the first live sports content housed on the fast streaming at all. It is a great space to be in right now with Roku. So we really appreciate the folks. And as I said before, if you catch us on other platforms like the day after, you catch us on whatever your favorite podcast platforms, we'll still be there. This is a additive to shoot us to the moon and have all the people out there who have Roku join us here. You can check us out anywhere in the world that they have Roku. So for today, we'll be talking about last night's 5-3 loss the White Sox had, and the mental aspect of these games in the future for this White Sox team that's gone through already 96 losses on their season. It's only August 20th. And then at the end of the show, we will be talking about today's game and also give these guys a San Francisco break. Yesterday, we did a San Francisco Immaculate Grid with the White Sox and Giants. Today, we're going to go with San Francisco movies that we like. And so we'll get to that at the end of the show. But today, I want to talk about last night's loss to the San Francisco Giants. Jonathan Cannon goes 6 innings last night. He doesn't pitch very well. 8 hits, gives up 5 earned, 4 in those inning. In that in the 5th inning, it was a really strong outing up until that inning. I was very surprised that Grady Sizemore, Ethan Katz left him in after that inning where he got hit 5 straight times and gave up 4 runs after the White Sox took a 1-0 lead. You guys have any impressions of last night's game? I thought it was kind of a good thing that Grady Sizemore did keep him in because he finished the game with only 90 pitches. But I think these are valuable lessons that Grady Sizemore and the coaches are teaching Jonathan Cannon. Hey, man, we can't just rescue you every time that things are going bad. And not those hits weren't necessarily hard hit, except for maybe the Lamont Wade Jr. singled in on the infield. But otherwise, those are just duck snorts that's going through. And Jonathan Cannon, while getting hit a little bit and giving up runs, I think he, handled himself in a good way. Vinny,
well, I mean, yeah, learning moment, exactly, right? I mean, for all these young starters that the White Sox are throwing here over the last few months of the season, they got to learn how to be able to navigate that kind of a game once these games start meaning a lot more for the White Sox specifically, right? So Jonathan Cannon's going to have a day 3 years from now when he gives up 4 runs in the first inning, and it's going to be on him to keep the team in the game, because you would think at that point, the plan at least would be to have an offense that can come back and make that a game, even though you're down in a 4-0 hole right away. He's got to be able to keep it at 4, right? And last night he didn't. He gave up one more home run, and that's fine. But you got to keep him in there to learn what it's going to be like to have to go back out onto the mound and keep pitching even after things go poorly. I mean, I can recall earlier this year, he had some nightmare first inning. I think it was in Detroit, right, where he gave up like 8 runs in the first inning or something like that. But he got pulled right away because it just wasn't stopping. He's got to figure out a way to stop the bleeding, and whether that is in that same inning or in the rest of over the course of the rest of the game, it's part of the lesson plan for becoming an effective major league starting pitcher. That's what he's doing right now. When Drew Thorpe's healthy, that's what he'll be going through. It's what Davis Martin is going through, even though he's got a little bit more experience right now. It's what Kai Busch is going through. And even a guy like Garrett Crochet, who's really kind of mastered everything right away. These guys are still in the very, very early stages of their major league careers. And if the White Sox are going to have some combination of these guys, or even just one of them as part of this starting rotation of the future when this team is supposed to be contending again, these lessons need to be learned now so they're not keeping this team down 2-3 years down the road.
This is, it's very much in line with what we talked about a little bit during yesterday's show, where this, in a way, this is a development period for a lot of these players, these August and September games where they do need to, in some cases like this one, battle through some difficult spots. And in a pitcher's case like Jonathan Cannon, Herb, I like the point that you made. Like, we can't always come rescue you from a game. And sometimes as a veteran pitcher, you have to wear it a little bit because maybe our bullpen's stretched a little thin already, and we can't afford to have them have to cover a bunch of innings. So you gave up 4 or 5 in this inning, but we need you to try to stretch this start as much as you can, for the sake of our bullpen, for the sake of the rest of the team. And so one of the positive, I think, from last night was seeing that Cannon was able to go 6 innings. That's a useful lesson down the road. And like, there are going to be times where you have to have, like, whether it's a bad inning that you're able to right the ship during the inning, or have the bad inning, but then be able to go back out there for the next one and make whatever adjustment is necessary and stop the bleeding. But like I said, there are just going to be times where, sorry, man, you got to wear it a little bit tonight because we need some innings out of you. And that, I think, is a little bit of what Cannon was hopefully learning during that start last night.
I think the main thing I took away as last night, early in the game in the 3rd inning, they got bases loaded, no outs. And immediately you get a strikeout from Lenny Sosa and then a hard hit double play ball by Luis Robert Jr. Same thing in the 4th inning, pretty much 1st and 2nd with nobody out, and the White Sox scored 0 runs. And at that point where you give the solo home run out to Chapman in the 6th inning, where Jonathan Cannon's still in the game, finished that 6th inning, I'm thinking, all right, wrap this game up. It's over. These guys are gonna, this was the mentality before Grady Sizemore. I know this is a short period of time, and I might be a prisoner of the moment. But what I saw last night was very impressive. The top of the 8th inning, White Sox are still down 5-1. There's no outs. And Luis Robert Jr. hits a ball to shortstop. It's a routine ground ball pretty much, but he hustles it out and beats the play. It got reviewed. It was a bang-bang play. They retained the call there for Luis Robert Jr. He eventually scores a run, and they score another run to make the score 5-3 in that game. It's just plays like that from a leader. That's why I hold Luis Robert Jr. to such a high esteem, where you're talking that you caught him on the foul territory, or caught Tommy Pham after he left for the White Sox. And Tommy Pham saying, hard worker, dude. That Luis Robert Jr., the perceptions that people might have, incorrect. That man works hard. And you could see it last night. You could see he's not mailed it in. He hasn't packed it in. And he is a leader. I'm sure all those 25 other dudes looked at him and say, if he's hustling in the 8th inning, down 5-1 in a season where he lost all these games, 21 in a row, I got to get my stuff together. And they put the winning run or the tying run on second base versus a tough closer in the 9th inning. Yes, they came up short, but these are the type of things that I love. Absolutely love last night's game because, yes, they struggled. They failed at the bases loaded, the runners in scoring position. That's been all season long. But they didn't give up. They didn't just resign themselves to, we're going to lose. And I think that starts with Luis Robert Jr. Grady Sizemore can say only so much things. When your players buy in and they say, you know what, I'm going to give my all, even though my checks are going to clear. I'm going to be good for the next 3 years. I don't care, but I do care. I show heart. And that's what was shown last night. And I could do with 165 or 162 of those, even if they're all come up losses, because I think the effort was there. Vinny, what say you about last night and the effort the White Sox and the fight they show at the end of the game?
Well, I mean, it is something that has become a bit of a trend since Grady took over. And I really do think that for the most part, the guys, at least inside, have felt that way for the majority of the season, right? I don't think that was necessarily this huge problem that needed to be corrected with the managerial change. I think that was a reflection of the record and certainly that losing streak that was happening right before Pedro Grifol got let go. But that being said, you have heard it verbalized by the guys since Grady took over, how they do want to win for him, how they do want to bring energy, how they do want to improve in those regards, even if it wasn't, something that was crippling them or the number one reason why their record is what it is. And I think you've seen that. I think you've seen it play out that way. Those games that they played against the Cubs were close and tight, and that first one especially. They came back, right? They were down big and they came back. There's the game they won against the Yankees. Obviously, they pedaled to the metal, right? They didn't stop at all. They won that game by 10 runs. So I think you've got a team that is a little bit energized. Everything's relative, of course. I don't think you can talk about a team, and compliment the heck out of them when they haven't really won very many games under Grady. They've only won 2, but I think it is a noticeable aspect of this team since he's taken over. And really, it should be the thing that he gets judged on, because if he does want to be considered for this position, or if the White Sox have any intent to consider him for this position, he wasn't going to go out there and all of a sudden the manager changes and they're going to start playing 500, 600, 700 baseball. I mean, this team is the same team, right? But if he can create an environment that is markedly different, if he can get guys to buy in a way that Pedro Grifol didn't, you got a lot of guys talking about how much they respect him being a former player. That kind of unique approach to things maybe helps out. That is what Chris Getz in the front office should be looking for if they do want to consider him for the job past the end of the season.
I think too, getting back to like Luis Robert specifically, because that's, I mean, the value in seeing the team continue to play this way at this point in the season is huge, because I do think that's going to carry over, whether or not it's Grady Sizemore who stays as the manager in 2025. But with Robert specifically, I'm thinking back to when at the trade deadline, when Miguel Vargas came over and he was in the clubhouse for the first time. And one of the things he talked about was the connection he had with Luis Robert already. They knew each other already. There was already kind of a connection between the two of them. That was also something that I think if I remember right, Grifol commented on or confirmed or acknowledged. So if Luis Robert is playing that way, showing that kind of hustle in a game this late in August in a season that's gone the way that this one has, and then you have somebody like Vargas, who's a younger player, who was probably the key piece of this trade that they made at the deadline. He's somebody you want to see develop into an important part of the next winning White Sox team. So he's learning something from that too. And that's where my mind went right away, Herb, was just like, for somebody like Vargas specifically, because he sees that kind of stuff, and it probably has an impact on how he approaches not only what he does during a game, but how he prepares beforehand, how he spends his time afterward. So there's a lot of stuff that maybe the fans don't see behind the scenes, that there's positive ripple effects when you have somebody like Robert carrying himself the way he does, but then also showing that kind of hustle, even in what turned out to be a 5-3 loss.
Good point, Jared. And after the break, we will be talking about how a season like this, or any season, could be weighing on your mental, and how these players and this organization itself deals with the mental aspect of the game. But first, we got Jared talking about the folks at Chevrolet.
That's right. If you are in the market to get a new car this time of year, this summer, then you are in luck. So you can shop summertime savings going on now at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram and save on the perfect new vehicle for you. This August, score new lower prices across their huge inventory during the Make This the Summer event. For a limited time, get 0% financing for 36 months on most of their new 2024 Jeep models. Or you can shop over 125 vehicles priced under $20,000. Let the amazing team at Ray CDJR help you during each step of your car shopping journey. With Ray's price promise, the numbers you're hearing now are the same prices you can expect to shop in store and online. That's because Ray's price promise means no price changing, no add-ons, and no hidden fees. Since they prioritize affordability for their customers, hurry in to Ray CDJR today and shop one of the Chicago area's largest inventories. Then drive home with more money in your pocket than you'd expect. So, if you're in the market for a new vehicle, then you have to check out the team at Ray Chrysler Dodge Jeep and Ram, because they're the only team we recommend. Visit them today on Route 12 in Fox Lake. For more information, visit Ray CDJR in Fox Lake or raycdjr.com. Those guys have been serving their community since 1963.
And Prize Picks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Prize Picks is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Unlike other apps, on Prize Picks, it's just you against the numbers. All you have to do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become one of the Prize Pick communities today. You can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. One Caleb Williams passing yard gets you 1 win on Prize Pick every week in September. That's right. Only 1 yard gets you an automatic win every football weekend in September. 4 weeks of free W's. Don't miss this deal on Prize Picks, because it's gone when September ends. Billy Joe Armstrong, I'm sorry about that. Prize Picks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, Georgia, and this state, Illinois. My go-to Prize Pick at the moment is the points, rebounds, and assists for Caitlin Clark and the points, rebounds, and assists for Angel Reese. Do with that what you will, and download the app today and use the code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code CHGO for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It is that easy. And guys, the thing is with winning 30 games and losing 96 games, something that very few teams in Major League Baseball have done, I think we, as people who watch them from afar, judge them, and I'm #1 guilty of it, of being, lazy, stupid, different things that I wouldn't call anybody else if I was face to face with these people. And so I think about not just any of the players that got to Major League Baseball, because it is a short group of people. 21,000 dudes in the history of the world have played Major League Baseball. So they're the elite of the elite. And so I think about their mental health and the mental states they have to go to, because I was watching a documentary with Greg Maddux as the main focus, and he was talking about after his 87 year, he went to a sports psychologist because he believed that 60% of the game was the mental side. The rest of the 40 was the physical side. And he's like, if it is 60% of the game, why am I not spending 60% of my training time on the mental health side? First, I already know the answer, but I'm going to ask you, Vinny, and you, Jared, about what the White Sox, as far as sports psychologists and the like, do they have a person in those type of roles for helping these players out, not just with, having this terrible season that they're having, but just the everyday grind of being a human being who's playing a sport of failure?
Yeah, I mean, they employ both a sports psychologist as well as a mental skills coach. I would imagine that basically every professional sports team in America and Canada and are like that as well. This is something that has grown across not just baseball but sports in general in recent years, as there's been a bigger focus in society as a whole on mental health and the taking care of yourself in that regard as well. I believe within the last few years, Major League Baseball has had allowed players to go on the injured list with mental health issues. As they battle that and fight through those things. So the team has the resources that these guys need, and the league has evolved to allow them to take care of themselves in that regard in any way that they see fit. Listen, it's a lot, right? I mean, I think fans are accustomed to thinking about this as a show, as an entertainment product, and these guys as sports playing robots, right? And it's very much the opposite. They are people who go out there and not only have to, like you said, Herb, deal with the successes and failures of their profession, but the fact that they do it on a stage like this in front of millions of people. So yes, the White Sox definitely have resources, as does Major League Baseball as a whole.
And the White Sox employed Dr. Jeffrey Fishbein as their sports psychologist. And unbeknownst to me, before I even broached this subject with you two gentlemen, our own Jared Wyllys has spoken to Dr. Jeffrey Fishbein on multiple occasions. And this is from a January 9, 2018 piece that you wrote for the Chicago Mag. Here's an excerpt from it. You said that, this is you talking, Jared. You said that it helps for a group of players to know about an organization's long-term plan so they can play with greater purpose. Can you explain more? And Dr. Fishbein says, take the Cubs, for instance. Going through a 100-loss season makes what they ultimately went through all the more special. There's not a player I know who would not go through a 100-loss season so he can be part of the best team in baseball 2 or 3 years down the road. For better or worse, sacrifice is part of this game, losing is part of this game, and failure is part of this game. A player can dwell on it or learn from it. That caught me not by surprise, but as the White Sox are currently going through their second 100-loss season, which they got 4 more this year to garner that dubious distinction. Do you think, and I don't know if you know, I mean, I won't put you on the spot about the White Sox, but this is the White Sox sports psychologist. I'm sure that his message in 2018 still rings true in 2024 for a team like the White Sox. Do you think it is important for players on the White Sox currently, who maybe 3-4 years down the road are still on this team, need to know, okay, our team sucks this year, but are we going to suck for a long time? And you think that also might weigh on their mental health and their mental stability?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think even under good circumstances, when a team is doing well, the process of going through a full baseball season it takes a toll on you as much mentally as it does physically. Because Herb, like you said, you're doing this all on a big stage where everything is kind of under scrutiny. One bad night, you catch a lot of flack for it. And I've talked to some of these guys, some of these players, about things like their social media accounts and what they deal with and comments and those kinds of things. So I know that just generally speaking, it is a tough mental battle to go through a baseball season. But in this situation specifically for the White Sox, where on top of just the normal mental pressure, you're dealing with we are losing as much as we are, then yeah, absolutely. It is very important to have a sense that we are going through this now with the belief that this is taking us somewhere. It's kind of like anybody who you take yourself through something difficult, knowing that there's, whether it's a reward at the end or this is building me to something that I'm going to look back and say it was worth it for me to go through this. So if these players have a clear sense of there's a vision for the organization, we believe in the moves that are being made, so that whether it's, I don't know how many years into the future, for those of us that'll be here, then yeah, we're going to get that reward or that payoff, so to speak. Because yeah, you know, the guys that were on the Cubs in 2012 and 2013, when they were in a situation that's in a lot of ways not quite as bad, but pretty similar to what the White Sox are going through now, they got the payoff of not only multiple playoff appearances, but the World Series in 2016. And that's what you're kind of hoping for if you're a part of this White Sox organization, is that, yeah, we can deal with doing this now because we're going to get to something better in a few years. And the Cubs aren't the only example. You know, you could go back and look at plenty of other organizations, even within the last 25 years, that have had some really bad seasons that were kind of building them toward something better. But for the sake of these players, that vision has to be clear. And I would like to believe that it is, that they are going to work every day with a sense for that. But I also know that their focus has to be kind of on the day-to-day at the same time. During a season, they show up to the ballpark thinking about, who am I playing today? Who's the pitcher that I'm facing today? And that's very much their focus. And in a way, I think that helps them, because they can't get too caught up in how many losses do we have? Are we going to set a record for the worst, you know, the most losses in a season and all of that? Because today's Tuesday, I'm showing up to the ballpark in San Francisco thinking about who's the pitcher that I'm facing today? What do I need to be looking out for? Or if I'm the starting pitcher, what's their lineup look like? How am I approaching these guys? They're really kind of shutting off all the rest of that stuff.
And Vinny, we went through the Rick Hahn, Kenny Williams rebuild. In that, I thought there was a little bit more transparency as far as what they were doing and what they were going through. I don't know if Chris has said as much to you guys in the Simple Media. And I mean, if he has a plan, he don't have to tell us. But do you think he would share this with some of the top players in the White Sox? Like, hey, I know it's tough this year. It's 100+ losses again, but stay with us. We have a plan in place and ready for you guys in a couple of years.
Sure. Especially if they're guys who are going to be part of that plan, right? I think right now what you're seeing at the major league level is a roster full of guys who are unlikely to be part of that plan. Even the guys who could be, right? The Garrett Crochets and the Luis Robert Juniors, they're the guys that we're talking about in terms of maybe being traded. So I think if you're Colson Montgomery, or if you're, you know, some of the young pitchers that we've been talking about, yeah, absolutely. You're getting talked to about the vision, and you're going to be part of that vision, right? But the others, it's about being professional, and it's about going out there and doing the things that Jared was talking about. There's a reason it's called sports psychology, right? And not just regular psychology, because the end goal is to get you through your job of being an athlete, of being a professional athlete, and being able to perform. I think that when you talk about the transparency, I don't know if that's the right word, because I don't think it's an unwillingness of Chris Getz and his front office to talk about what their vision is. I think it's probably that it's not fully formed yet, or they don't know how it's going to become fully formed, right? I mean, remember, Rick Hahn goes out and makes those trades, and all of a sudden they've got all these prospects right away at the very start of that project. That rebuilding project wasn't even a year old by the time they made the trade for Cease and Jimenez with the Cubs. So Chris Getz is probably working in a way where he's got to get a few more of those people into his long-term plan in order to be able to forecast what it's going to look like. But I understand that's frustrating, and it should be frustrating to fans, because not only do you have to sit through what might end up as the worst season in modern baseball history, but there's no end date. There's no end date to this thing, to the end of all the losing, right? There's no goal where you're like, all right, well, you know, from the fan standpoint, what you were just talking about, Jared, right? From a player standpoint, this is from a fan standpoint. There's no you being able to say, okay, well, at least this is what this was for, because you don't know what it's going to be for. And not only that, you have the way that last rebuilding project went to make you skeptical that even if you were given a date, it would be what it was supposed to be by then. So maybe the fan base needs some sports psychology work as well. But I can tell you that those players, the vast majority of them in that clubhouse right now, have approached this season with a whole lot of professionalism, kind of knowing either what they were getting into or what they are in at the moment, and knowing how to handle that, not just for the team's present and future, but for their individual present and futures as well.
And to the man, you guys have always said that this clubhouse is better than it was last year. I mean, the White Sox have professed that. So, I mean, the losing is tough, but I'm sure the togetherness, the camaraderie they're having this year, even though it's tough, you can see still 120 plus games they've battled through. They still want to play for each other, even though the results might not be favorable every night. After the break, we will talk about a couple players down in the minor leagues and get you ready for tonight's game where we have Robbie Ray versus Davis Martin. But first, I'll tell you about our good folks over there at Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary. They're here to elevate your summer. Sunnyside is your home for judgment-free cannabis shopping. They have a crazy selection with over 100 different strains to choose from with easy online ordering and in-store pickup. Wherever you are in Illinois, Sunnyside has a location for you. They have spots as far south as Champaign and as far north as South Beloit. I usually go to the Lakeview one, sometimes the River North one, depends where I am. But I always like to stop in their store nearest me for expert guidance from their staff or select from the quality lines like Cresco or Florical. Or for the summer, the Good News Tea Time disposable vape is here, bringing classic lemonade flavor that's perfect for the golf course because we all need a little help staying loose on the green. And Free Spirit vapes and cartridges are all new from Good News also. We have a lush mango flavor. These vapes are perfect for tapping into your flower power. I'm picking up some Good News gummies at Sunnyside and Lakeview. You can too by visiting sunnyside.shop for bright buys every day, including 50% off your first 3 online purchases. 50% off, 50. First online 3 purchases. Enter promo code HICHGO at checkout to qualify. Exclusions apply. Sunnyside Cannabis Dispensary, bright buys every day, only for 21 plus or Illinois medical card holders. And let me tell you, if there's a surefire way to wake up feeling fresh after a night of drinking, it's with Z-Biotics Pre-Alcohol. Pre-Alcohol is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle the rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted to toxic byproduct in your gut. It is this byproduct, not dehydration, that is to blame for your rough next day. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break down this byproduct. Just remember to make Z-Biotics your first drink of the night. Drink responsibly, then feel your best tomorrow. From vacations to weddings to birthdays to reunions, there's so much going on. Get the most out of your summer plans by stocking up on pre-alcohol now. Go to zbiotics.com/CHGOSOX to get 15% off your first order when you use the code CHGOSOX at checkout. Pre-alcohol is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. If you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/CHGOSOX and remember to use the code CHGOSOX at checkout for 15% off. Thank you for Z-Biotics sponsoring this episode and our good times. Right now, we're going to go down to the minor leagues. And of course, we haven't checked in on this young player in a while, but AA Birmingham Barons lefty starter Noah Schultz, 21-year-old southpaw from Oswego East High School, pitched 3 2/3 innings versus the Cub affiliate, the Tennessee Smokies, where he gave up 1 hit, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. Opponents this year are batting a measly 1.91, and he lowered his already low ERA to 1.59 down there in AA. This kid we're having a ridiculous year right now, and the future is bright for young Noah Schultz. I'm looking forward to his future, and it might be on the White Sox in 2025. He's only 21 years old, and he's only pitched, I think, only 77, 78 innings this year, but it looks like the White Sox are getting this young player ready to go for next year.
Yeah, we'll see. Measly, great word there, Herb. But I think the idea with him is he's yet to get on a regular schedule, right? I mean, this is a guy who's still pitching once a week. You know, this is a guy who is still very young, like you mentioned, and a guy who has very few innings under his belt. Now, we just had a whole lot of this same conversation with Garrett Crochet before the season started. And look how that worked out. But that was a guy who, of course, already pitched at the major league level, has already, advanced in age a little bit. Noah Schultz is still very young, doesn't really have any sort of major league. Well, he certainly, obviously, doesn't have any major league experience, but I think next year there is no rush to get him to the big leagues. It is about getting him on that every fifth day schedule, getting some innings under him. If he's got to spend the whole year at AAA or the whole year at AA and AAA, so be it. The White Sox don't need him in the major leagues next year. As impressive as he's been, remember, he is now the highest ranked prospect in their organization by MLB.com. He's one of the highest ranked prospects in baseball to at that point. So this is a guy that they need to teach how to be a pitcher now, teach how to be a starting pitcher. We know that he can get guys out. You read the numbers. We know he can get guys out. It's now about the day-to-day life of a starting pitcher and him learning how to do that too, because he's got to accomplish both those things before he can get to the major league level.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we talked about at the beginning of the show with Jonathan Cannon, where there are certain sorts of lessons you have to learn as a young player, and specifically a young pitcher. And yeah, it's so easy, especially with prospects. We get caught up sometimes in looking at these numbers and just assuming, well, this is just going to translate to the next level, or he's ready for the next level because look at how many guys he's striking out, look what he's doing. But like as Vinnie pointed out, there's so much more to it that's with it, especially in Schultz's case, where he has boxes to check that may not have anything to do with the numbers that he's putting up in a box score. So, and next year, when you're not necessarily, who knows what 2025 is going to look like in the win-loss column, but we can probably safely assume that they're not going to be fighting for a playoff spot next year. So is there a reason to rush Schultz through any levels and get him up to the majors? Definitely not. So I would like to see him get as many innings in AAA as possible in 2025. But yeah, I think it's more about some of those other, like getting him on a regular pitching schedule, but also continuing to work on what does your routine look like in days 1 through 4 leading up to that start, and some of those kind of progressions as well.
And speaking of AAA, let's go up there where Tim Elko has played 18 games. And yes, he is a 25-year-old first baseman DH, and so a little longer in the tooth than your typical minor leaguer, but not too old. He is hitting 293, 346, and 547 slugging with 5 home runs in AAA Charlotte this year. Is there a possibility that when the rosters do expand, even though the White Sox have a bunch of DH first baseman types, that Tim Elko could be one of those players called up to the major leagues?
I would say that's unlikely, but I think the better question is what is there for Tim Elko next year? Because I think that the way Chris Getz has approached things, certainly at the trade deadline and last offseason, and I would expect him to do the same this upcoming offseason, I would expect everything to be on the table. And if a team comes calling for Andrew Vaughn, I don't think they're going to hang up the phone. I think that the problem there is what sort of value are you getting for him, right? I mean, Garrett Crochet is a trade candidate, mostly because the White Sox could get a whole bunch of minor league players for him. Luis Robert Jr., while he's having a down year, is still a guy who last year showed he could be an MVP type player. The league didn't forget that, and he could probably still get you a whole ton of minor league players to help with this rebuilding project. Andrew Vaughn's a little different. He's shown some good flashes. He was an above average hitter last year, but nothing close to what anybody maybe expected him to be. Are they still in the place where they'd be selling way too low on an Andrew Vaughn? That being said, what future does Andrew Vaughn have here with the White Sox as he continues to make his way through his pro career? He's at what? 3 seasons left of control after this. I think, is it 2? Yeah. So, I mean, this guy is in the position of probably not being a part of this long-term future unless he turns it on and gets an extension, right? So those are 2 massive hurdles to jump. Why wouldn't he be available this offseason? I don't see a reason why he wouldn't be. And we could be talking about someone like Tim Elko, or maybe it's as easy as just Gavin Sheets, but we could maybe be talking about a different first baseman next year, not because they would just cut Andrew Vaughn loose for nothing, but because if some team does come calling, maybe they say, all right, we'll take a prospect or two that betters our chances of being competitive 4 years from now than it does in 2025 if Andrew Vaughn would have been a part of things.
Yeah, and as Blank Name mentions, Hagen Smith will be debuting soon, and Hagen Smith, 5th overall pick. We covered this the other day, Vinny. Will be the 5th overall pick in this year's draft. Will report to Winston-Salem Dash and make his minor league debut on Saturday, where the expectation is for him to go up to 3 innings. That is from Scott Merkin today on his tweet. So we're going to get the first round pick already pitching. He's already, I think, thrown 80 some pitches this year for the Arkansas Razorbacks. White Sox are trying to just ease him in, kind of like they're doing with Noah Schultz, but a little bit different because he's pitched 84 innings already in college and he's just ramping back up. He's pitched a couple of simulated or games down in the lower levels of the minor leagues for the White Sox, were only 2 or 3 innings at a time. So the White Sox are trying to probably get his innings up to a certain number. And so next year they can be certain, like he's got 100 amount of innings last year total. And then next year he can come in and say, okay, build this up from 100 to 120 or 140. And so when he does get ready to come up to the major leagues, whatever year that is, he can hit the ground running for the White Sox. So it's good that the White Sox already has him signed. He's already going to be playing at the high A level. And did that shock you at all, Vinny, that they're sending him to Winston-Salem instead of Canny or to rookie ball?
Not really. I mean, this guy was touted when they picked him as being advanced. I mean, he was one of the best pitchers, if not the best pitcher in college baseball last year. And, we're not talking about Noah Schultz, who's coming out of high school. We're not talking about an 18-year-old kid who has to learn to do so much more. We're talking about a guy who has gone through some development already. And I think that when you're being selected with that high of a draft pick, the expectation is that you're at a much different starting point than a lot of other players are. Perhaps a much higher starting point than basically any other player you could have drafted would be at. So to see him start there is not a surprise. I think to the point of him pitching the rest of the year, I think there's a lot of it that is about not letting him rust, so to speak. Right? I mean, it's probably not going to be a lot, but you don't want him to just completely shut down because then you got to do so much more work to build him back up to get ready for spring next year. There's really no way to forecast where this guy could be next year because I think the sky's the limit. I don't know if he'll be on the White Sox, but it wouldn't be the most shocking thing in the world if he was by the end of next season because he is supposed to be so advanced and he might be able to just kind of impress in a way that gets him up to the big league level very quickly. I mean, this guy was the number 5 pick in the draft and he was an incredible, if not the best pitcher at college baseball, pitching in the SEC too. I mean, it's not like they just, yanked him out of some, I don't even know what's a small baseball conference. I was going to go small basketball conference, the Patriot League. Who knows if they even have basketball, but my March Madness stuff coming through there. But yeah, listen, he's supposed to be really, really good. And the expectation should be high after what he did in college. And if that means expecting to see him at the major league level sooner rather than later, then go ahead and expect it because this kid's supposed to have the talent to do it.
The thing with Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz and all the rest of the tall lefties, Kai Bush, recall and I know we're doing a San Francisco movie thing, but let's think about an Oakland movie, Moneyball, where they have to figure out how to replace Jason Giambi. And if the White Sox are going to be trading Garrett Crochet, they have found a way to at least match the size and the potential of Garrett Crochet with the big, tall lefties that they have in their system. I mean, Noah Schultz, 21 years old, was he 6'8", 6'9", a giant of a man. Hagen Smith's in 6'6" height, and Kai Bush is about that same thing. So, yeah, they're fixing to replace the Garrett Crochet in the aggregate with the actual person on the mound and in the rotation there. So let's go to today's game and see what we got today. Is the White Sox taking on the San Francisco Giants, 64-63 for the San Francisco Giants, 30-96 for the White Sox. They have Lenyn Sosa leading off at second base, Luis Robert Jr. playing center field and hitting second. Third is Andrew Benintendi playing left field. Andrew Vaughn is cleanup and DH. Gavin Sheets will be playing first base and hitting fifth. Catching today is Corey Lee hitting sixth, and at seventh spot will be the third baseman Miguel Vargas. Right fielder Dominic Fletcher is the eighth, and hitting in the ninth spot at shortstop is Brooks Baldwin. All four starting pitcher Davis Martin, who has got 4 starts on the season. He's got an 0-1 record and a 3 ERA. He'll be going against Robbie Ray. Both of these players, both Davis Martin and Robbie Ray, both had Tommy John surgery in May of 2022, and both have come back this year to varying degrees of success. I think Davis Martin has been pretty strong in his 4 outings. This would be his 5th outing so far, and Robbie Ray, his last couple outings, has been kind of rusty after starting off pretty strong in his San Francisco debut. You guys think tonight, what say you about tonight and what Davis Martin and the White Sox lineup can get to this Robbie Ray-led San Francisco Giants lineup?
Well, I think you hope that some of the positive things that they showed in last night's game, you see some carryover. You know, we saw Luis Robert get a few hits. Brooks Baldwin got on base, 4 times last night? And, you know, where they maybe lacked some of the timely hitting that would have made the difference in last night's game. The fact that they were threatening to score as much as they were, getting as many guys on base against a better pitcher in Monday night's game. You hope to see on the offensive side that a lot of that carries over and you could see a different result. And I mean, personally, I've been pretty impressed with how good Davis Martin has looked since coming back. And so the main thing that I'll be keeping an eye on in tonight's game is just, does he continue to pitch the way that he has so far? Because that can have such significant implications for 2025, as if Davis Martin closes out this season with a string of good starts, shows that he's healthy, but also shows that, hey, I can be a useful starter in your rotation going forward. I really like the possibilities that opens up. So for me, Davis Martin is going to be kind of the storyline going into the game, at least.
Yeah, he's a guy that doesn't need to be dominant. He just needs to be steady. And I think he showed that in 2022, and that's what really jumped out. And now you've got a guy who's doing it again this year in a very small sample size, obviously. But if he can continue to do that through the last 2 months of this season, all of a sudden it's just give him the effective guy. Give him the guy who gets the outs and gives you the innings, and that's all you need. I mean, not everybody can be Garrett Crochet, but people need to go out and deliver those effective outings in a way that wins you a division, that wins you a championship, right? And so if Davis Martin can be that guy, the guy that you can just count on, then that is such a big win for the White Sox. Obviously, they're going to find out over the course of not just these 2 months, but the years going forward, whether he can be. I think he's as big as leading a candidate as you could possibly have to be in that rotation next season. It all starts now, though, and him feeling good coming off of the surgery and just getting outs. That's what it's all about for Davis Martin.
And Davis Martin, like I said, 0-1 with a 3 ERA, 10 walks in the season, 17 strikeouts, and 18 innings pitched in his 4 starts. Robbie Ray takes the bump for the San Francisco Giants with a 6 ERA and a 2-2 record. He has 30 strikeouts in his 21 innings pitched this year in his 5 starts. So the White Sox have their work cut out for him because Robbie Ray is a filthy strikeout artist. But also, you see that 6 ERA. People have been getting to him as of late. Just put the bat on the shoulder. It looks like sometimes Robbie Ray will walk you too. So this game is taking place in San Francisco. It's an awesome city, and I know that people poo-poo San Francisco a lot lately, and I would just suggest to you, if you've never been to San Francisco or haven't been in a while, make a trip, especially out to Oracle Park. It is a beautiful city right by the bay there, and I would definitely recommend it. But every time I see a movie based in San Francisco, I'm like, man, this is a beautiful landscape. The city is just what the West Coast is all about. That BART system is like Chicago, like as far as their rapid transit. If you guys have been to the rest of California, you know that BART is elite as far as rapid transit. LA and San Diego absolutely are trash. But what movie and that is San Francisco based is your favorite, Jared Wyllys?
Oh, there's an easy choice for me. I'm a huge fan of the movie Bullet with Steve McQueen. Love that movie. So this was, I know there's Dirty Harry is out there, but but I'm such a Steve McQueen fan, so it's Bullet, no question. Love that movie.
Do I get a pick? Yeah, okay.
You do.
Listen, The Rock is a fantastic movie. That's a great choice. I also, being a big Marvel guy, I got to shout out the Ant-Man movies that take place out there in San Francisco. So I'll just give that a little honorable mention. But I'm gonna go with Big Trouble in Little China. How about that?
Wow, that movie is older than you.
True enough.
Wow. And I mean, so was the other one. So was the one that you picked, Jared. You look at you, both of you guys go into movies that, older than you, going back and watching movies that might be a risk. I didn't do that when I was a kid. Like, it took me so long to watch Blazing Saddles, and I know it doesn't take place in San Francisco, but it took until my late 30s and to watch the first time of Blazing Saddles. Like, what am I gonna watch a movie from the 70s? Garbage. No, absolutely. Probably the funniest movie I've ever watched in my life. But when I think about San Francisco, I think about The Pursuit of Happiness. And if you guys have ever seen it, it's Will Smith and his son, Jaden Smith, portraying Chris Gardner and his son. A real life story. And it's just such a heartwarming story about struggle, single fatherhood, etc., etc. And this story, of course, has a beautiful ending and triumph over default and triumph over losing. And that movie just gives me, every time I watch it, it's like, oh my goodness, it's just the essence of what movie making should be about. I think Will should have definitely took all the awards that year, because that's his best acting job for me, because I felt like he was actually homeless. I felt like he was destitute, and that he was trying to do his best he could, firstly for his son, and then secondly for himself, because he knew he was a brilliant guy and just not getting the chances that he necessarily could get. And like that scene where they miss on the homeless, or the the encampment that they have, or they got stand in line and they miss it, and he has a son with them, and all the machine is like, just rips your heart out. And that's just a great movie. I got to check out these two movies you guys are talking about. I've never seen them in my life before. And that's Kurt Russell, right? Big Trouble in Little China?
Yes, it is. It is very wacky.
And Herb, to be fair, I didn't watch Bullet until like 3 years ago. So I wasn't like hip to these movies when I was younger. This was definitely something that, I started watching older movies, in my recent years. So for anybody that hasn't seen it, though, I definitely strongly encourage you to go check out Bullet, especially if you just like, fast cars and stuff like that. Hard to go wrong there. But I have to say, Herb, I'm glad you brought up Pursuit of Happiness, because that is genuinely, that's a great movie. I hadn't thought of it when I was first when you posed this question to us before the show about San Francisco based movies. I went straight to, Dirty Harry or Bullet. Which one am I going to go with? But yeah, that I'll second that. So anyone that's never seen this movie, Pursuit of Happiness, fire it up within the next few days, but just be prepared, because it's going to take you on a journey. And maybe White Sox fans who are going through hardship right now, I don't know, maybe this will hit you in the right place. Maybe it'll be hard to watch, but if you want to see just something that is perhaps a metaphor of where you hope the White Sox are going, you're in the hard times right now, but just like Will Smith in Pursuit of Happiness, you get to a better place in the end. I don't know. Maybe that's the way to go.
Wow, that was very deep. Mine is just like, kung fu action. So I don't think I have no such depth to my pick right there.
I mean, my pick was just like, hey, Steve McQueen, cool car. That was as far as it went. So I think Herb takes the prize for this one.
Not at all. I mean, there's still Miss Doubtfire, which I loved and enjoyed. You said Dirty Harry with Clint Eastwood is a classic film. Star Trek 4 was filmed out in San Francisco. You talked about it earlier. The Rock was filmed out there, talking about Alcatraz. And one of the best comedies of all time, 48 Hours, Eddie Murphy, Nick Nolte, also San Francisco based. I'm sure there's other ones that you who are watching and or listening have. Please leave them in the comments after we are done with this show. If you're watching on a replay or on Roku, which we 100% appreciate you guys joining us here on Roku on our initial voyage out on the Roku waters. It feels great. The weather's good, and it feels like we are at home right here at Roku. So for Vinnie Duber, who is our CHGO White Sox beat writer, and Jared Wyllys, who is our CHGO baseball writer, he does both Cubs and Sox. You're Jay Wyllys, Wise instead of Eyes. Vinnie Duber is at Vinnie Duber. My name is Herb Lawrence at Ecknerwall23. We want to thank our producer, Sarah. Thank you very much for helping us out on our maiden voyage out here on the Roku waters. Thank you for joining us on Roku. Thank you for joining us on YouTube, on whatever platform you have. Like, rate, subscribe, share. Tell your friends, hey, I saw this really cool White Sox show on Roku, on YouTube. You need to be going there too. Hit the like button, hit the notifications bell on our YouTube channel so you can never miss an episode here of CHGO White Sox. We will see you tomorrow after the post game of the White Sox Giants game. So thank you for Vinny, for Jared, and for Sarah. Good night.
We all silly like the mayor.